So welcome everyone to the 10th Creatures and Friends seminar on creating a common vocabulary between creative practitioners and policymakers. My name is Irina Zamurueva. I am working for a sustainability organization called Sniffer. It's based in Scotland, and we are one of the 11 partners of the Creatures project. And so for those that are joining us for the first time or are watching this as a recording, Creatures is a Horizon 2020 project, and the abbreviation stands for Creative Practices for Transformational Futures, where together with creative practitioners, researchers, academic partners, we're looking at the ways that creative practices are trying to bring us towards more sustainable, fair, and just futures. And today we are joined by Marjo Mäenpää, who is the director of the Foundation for Cultural Policy Research and Cupore, Center for Cultural Policy Research in Finland. And Marjo has extensive experience in working in various cultural and policy spaces like the Ministry of Education and Culture and in the media, production and education at the University of Art and Design in Aalto University. So I'm really excited to hear from Marjo on the intersection of art and policy, as this is a really big theme for Creatures. We're thinking a lot about bridging the worlds of creative practice and policy change. So it'd be fantastic to hear from you, Marjo, how you're doing this. And to all those that are joining us now, if you have questions, please drop them into the chat. We will have the Q&A session after Marjo's presentation. And I think that's all I have to say for now. Marjo, I will hand over to you now. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you very much for asking me to share these ideas, because it was really exciting when actually I have to thank you about the question that came from your side. This what it takes to create a common vocabulary, because it took me to think so many things that I don't know. Actually, do I have any kind of a clear answer? Probably not, and I don't know. Can anyone answer directly to this? Can you see the?
Yep, can see it.
Mode? Yes, and. So I've been thinking about this now for actually a couple of weeks already. About let's see, can I change? Yeah. Did you saw my changing the slide? Yes.
Yep, all works.
Okay, now it works. My background, as you explained, is very diverse. I started to think about this speech act and how to speak with the or how to behave in a diverse groups. Since I was working in a library or in a constructions, or I studied foreign literature in the University of Helsinki and did my seminar works about the semiotics and formalists and the Russian literature and all those ideas about the polyphonic thinking is something lies here. So behind my ideas, what I'm going to present to you today, and especially right now when I'm working in Cupore as a director and taking care of the multidisciplinary teams, which are working for different kind of stakeholders, or with different kind of stakeholders, or our research is commissioned by first of all the Ministry of Education and Culture, and then municipals, different cities, but also foundations big foundations or smaller foundations where the artists are working together. So very, very diverse groups, and I'm really, really, really brave or honored to work here. So and see how the work our researchers are doing is taken to different groups, and more or less satisfied with as well as artists and as well as practitioners in ministries or state level. So and our strength is something that we work in an academic world and in a practitioner with the practitioners. So we feel like we are in between of different kind of stakeholders. I'm going to I prepared to give a presentation of 15 minutes. So start to cough when I'm working or speaking too much. So what is I think the main thing and the themes. What I thought when I started to prepare about this presentation, and I was thinking of you also, this research group I've learned to know during your research meetings and seminars where I was pleased to take part. I think that the most important thing is the trust and how you speak with others and how you create something with others is the trust. I've done my dissertation about very, very diverse things. It's a mixture of can I say fucking everything, but it's a mixture of different things. And first of all, I studied their co-production and how people share knowledge, and it's a kind of the art of building communities needs the kind of a feeling of trust or some motivation to share. It's the basis there is a trust. I studied this kind of Etienne Wenger. Yeah, sorry, I don't have any sources written in my presentation, but I can send later on if you wish to have. So he wrote about communities of practice and motivation communities, and how trust is something that encourages you to share, but you have to trust your fellow citizens and your colleagues, so that they have a goodwill to understand what you are saying, or goodwill to listen at least what you're saying. And this is very important, and it's very important here in Cupore, so that even though we don't exactly even though we are not doing the same thing, or even we don't understand what we are doing, we do trust that there is a seed of knowledge and a willingness of understand each other, so that the facts lie there, and we do have a common kudos or respect to each other work. The other thing under the other group is the academic practices and research is it's something I think that you also have faced that whether you are following some methodological or theoretical paths, but at the same time you are working with the very practical things that are in the core of your work. That design is something which is layered with for example, I think design is something which has layers of practice and theory and different methodologies, so that you have to you have to understand how it works. Also, practices of applied research is something that comes out of the theoretical work, but then the practicalities are very important. And here you are also working. The community of knowledge, like I said, it's like we are working here, it's a knowledge building community, knowledge building work, and understanding how it works, how you learn, also how you learn from each other. It's very important. And I think this I remember when working in media lab in University of Art and Design, or now that's Aalto University. We were very diverse group of colleagues and students and teachers and researchers, and also very international group at that time also, and the kind of a formalist thinking of learning and learning from each other, learning by doing, but learning by doing together was very, very important thing. And I still respect the how to say the basis, and it's still very important. I would like to carry the atmosphere from those days to deal this. So networks are important. Also, some aspects being in between and seeing around. Like I told you about our situation in Cupore, our researchers are in between of something. We are in between of academic world. We are collaborating a lot with the universities, and then we have also this kind of a knowledge building cooperation with the ministries. So it's something that we would like to see the whole perspectives and understand, and being in between and seeing around means that we work as an interpreters also at this time. When I worked there as a dean in the Faculty of Art and Media in Pori, it's a tiny apartment right now, but we established a master program with the Turku University of Economics, and it was there was designers, artists, and economics, and it was very, very difficult to find the common path and the common principles, what to do. The master program was called Creative Business Management, so artistic creativity and then business management together. And we saw at that time that there was a really heavy task to put these two types of disciplines together. I think in Aalto nowadays it's easier, but I remember that or it started from very concrete things. We started to think and try to be honest, what do we mean when we speak about value? And for us humanists and artists and designers, value is something so different than for the economics and when you think about the monetary value and something which you can calculate or measure compared to the value what we think, what is it for the sustainable way of living or happiness or whatever. So it's I think there you need to have a trust to speak with different with the people who have different type of way of thinking of these kind of concrete things and you have to be ready to solve these kind of knots together. So it means, of course, management skills, or you probably have heard this scaffolding. It's a kind of a building frames or building ladders to create the situation where you can work together and you can gain something together even though disciplines are different. So ventriloquism is something I learned while I was preparing to speak to you. It was a very nice article from fellows from University of Tampere, Hanna Rautajoki and Matti Hyvärinen. This is a kind of aspects of voice in the use of positioning in polyphonic storytelling, and it's public in intellectbooks.com called, but I can send you later also the link to this article. It's about narratology actually, but it's a very good metaphor, this speaking from belly. So that you always have different voices and you have different roles, and it's a question that whose voice is heard and who really has a possibility to speak. This is in this Rautajoki Hyvärinen case, what they are writing, it's a kind of a narratological research project where they interviewed different people, and this came up to their mind when they have an interview with a 92-year-old lady, and her daughter attended the occasion of this interview, and she was interrupting her mother all the time and explaining how things really are, or these two person has totally different view of that same thing and the history. But it's also someone is interrupting or someone is all the time with you, or you have you have a layered voice, so to say. But these are the actually the things I was thinking, and if I go further, these are marvelous pictures drawn my friend architect Merja Härö. When I was discussing with her, so she immediately got the point. So she gave these pictures to me, the images. So why it's difficult to understand each other, and I have a really nice story from my 30 years, yeah, or oh God, 30 years ago or more, yeah, 35 years ago. Oh dear. Okay, can't to calculate how many years ago, but 1991, I was really proud to host very, very famous semiotics, Juri Lotman. He came from Estonia. He's a Russian-speaking Estonian semiotics and researcher. And I published his book in Finnish or series of essays, Merkkien maailma. It came the world of science, and he was already over 90, and he died a couple of years after we met. But he gave a lecture in the University of Helsinki, big hall in Portania, and I remember because my Russian is not very fluent, and he didn't speak English, and my German was also quite poor, so I had the feeling that we couldn't understand each other at all, and he was just so famous and such a marvelous person, and I felt so ashamed that I couldn't explain my gratitude of being with him at that time, or publishing his book, his texts in Finnish. And I felt that he gave me this lecture in the Portania Hall. There was also a couple of hundreds others, but he explained that there is these two persons wanted to discuss with each other and send messages to each other from A to B and B to A, and there is a kind of a line. Your message is reaching to B, but it's never the same what you're sending. The B doesn't get it at all, or it's there is all the time some kind of a interruptions or something changes in between the message, and you can be sure he explained that it's really difficult to understand each other because there is always some kind of an interruptions or messy things in between our messaging, and then he explained that okay, nevertheless, it's actually what would the world be if you could got my message exactly like I'm sending to you, so that there wouldn't be any kind of misunderstandings, or you just understand me as clear as I'm trying to explain. And he explained that then we all would be just alike, so the world would be very boring. Milliards and milliards of human beings are just everybody alike each other, so no variations, nothing, no diversity, nothing. And the idea of this interruptions between our messages, or the stream, it's the thing that makes us intelligent and makes world changing, and makes world diverse. And this was, I think it was a very, very nice lecture from Yuri Mikhailovich. Also, another thing from this field of narratology and semiotics is this notion of external and internal figures in our social interaction. Then when we speak, we have a diverse voices, or Erving Goffman demonstrated that instead of the simple speaker-hearer pair, there is a present in an encounter multidisciplinarity of partisans, or internal and external variable of different roles. So when we speak, we are not always the same person when we're speaking, and when we are getting the messages, we are not always in the same position of getting messages. So it's a kind of also Charles Goodwin is something narratologist in the storytelling research. He says that we are in the production and reception side, there is various roles we are using, or the tellers, when we speak, we mobilize toolkit of voices. And then one of my favorite, Michael Bachtin, I've published 2 of his books into Finnish because I actually it was the reason of my starting in the publishing business long time ago, and I wanted to publish his text into Finnish, but he speaks about this polyphonic layers or polyphony in a speech or in a text, so that you always have a kind of a dialogue in your speech. And this he found out by searching very thoroughly Mikhail Dostoevsky's texts. And you see, and the belling out of voice is something that it is. Okay, so finally, something also what is when we're having a dialogue. I wanted to put this Wikipedia site because Wikipedia, I think it's a very good tool for making things clearer between us, so that we can share the same kind of information, and we are all together in a huge community creating facts that we can have a basis of our speaking. But this real speech is or real ideas, they come from this kind of a Hegelian idea of dialogue, or this dialectic things that someone is presenting a thesis, a thing, and then in a discussion you have an antithesis, and together you can come to a synthesis, find out together something which could be called as a truth, or a research solution, or something. And also, this is a very good. Or I was thinking about these what was written about the dialogue and dialectic. This time of this hate speech and this social media garbage speech, or kind of a heuristic speech, which is not actually seeking of synthesis, but seeking rather than or trying to just dispute another's argument. So something very important to understand also these kind of lines. So after all, I don't know, I might not have very concrete examples of how to create a common vocabulary, but how to understand about different disciplines, and how to position yourself being as an interpreter or being in between, so that's you can in your work build the bridges. Uh, what I would like to show something is what some of you is doing, or what we learned, what I learned from the School of Art and Design, this the information design, to decrease understanding. Very important thing is visual design. When we study something, we have to show uh, things to different kind of practitioners, and do it so that people can understand our message. And so simple language, visual design is something which is very important skill, and like to that we could use this more and more, and that the beauty of visual design is also lies there, that you can show in a very simple way the facts that you have found in a multidisciplinary thing, their group. But I think we can, maybe you wish to speak and discuss about these things more, and ask my if you're interested in the hear more. But I'm just thinking about these diegesis and mimesis. Then the diegesis, telling in fiction, it presents an interior or different type of view. Diegesis means that you are seeking the point of view, whose view is lies there in the text. And this you always have to understand. And mimesis is something, representation. It's showing. It's something. Mimesis comes from Plato, and it means imitating things or creating art. But it's a space of representation. And these two layers are very important when you position yourself in a situation where you wish yourself to be heard or understand. But after all, I think I'm too. Sometimes I feel myself that I'm too stuck in the various small things, and mixing things more than have a lifelong understanding of something very special, or can concentrate into a one thing. But this is maybe it's then good to just stay as a director of this kind of a polyphonic community, more than and lead researchers and practitioners, more than do the research by yourself. This were my thoughts about this thing. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Marjo, for setting out that kind of conceptual reference of how you approach thinking of being, and that in between the cultural and the policy space. And I want to, well, first of all, invite everyone to ask questions first. You can do that either in the chat or raise your hand or indicate somehow to us that you'd like to ask a question, then you can unmute and ask it. But in the meantime, I would just like to zoom in a little bit into this kind of different world, as you said yourself, it's like an interesting in-between space that you are in. Kind of there is on one hand, this policy world that within creatures we are seeing that as very much kind of very outcomes focused ways, right? That's a space where often kind of every action needs the justification and the kind of the very concrete outcomes need to be shown. And then there's the creative world where often things are very much around the process, around exploring, around something very experimental. So I wonder kind of what are the challenges of working in these in-between spaces of the creative and the policy do you see from that in-between space, and what are the gaps? Like, what do these gaps looks like in between these worlds, and maybe how, yeah, if you can give us maybe a few examples of what that translation in action looks like from the creative to the policy world, or other way around, from the policy into the creative world.
Mm. Yeah, for example, when this is a very practical experience I got when I moved from Aalto University, the work to the ministry. And I felt that I have a special kind of expertise and I can use it. And then all of a sudden, when I worked there, the legislation and hierarchies led more my work than the things I thought that I knew best. And first, it was kind of a feeling of frustration that no one is interested in my background or what am I doing here. But then I think when I learned to know that I think that good government is a basis of firm democracy, and there are such kind of things that you have to respect, and the way you work. It's when in a creative work or in a research even, you just work with your ideas, and intuition is very important, and also a kind of speaking with others and sharing ideas, and then you jump into a world where things have to be very complete. When you open your mouth in a meeting, everybody expects that you have a completed idea of something. But yeah, I think to understand these things, and it's time for having ideas, and then it's time for go ahead and explain facts. So it's a kind of it's like a production space. You have a time for ideas, you have time of plans, and then you have time for management or production, and you can't separate these things. I don't know, they're not very concrete.
Yeah, but thanks for that reflection anyway. Tara, do you have a question?
Hi, yeah, I do, but I think my internet connection is doing worse right now. So I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
I can hear you fine, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, well, please let me know if I disappear or anything. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm Tara. I thought it was really interesting, but at one point I felt myself a bit lost when you were discussing dialectics or the dialectic method to have a discourse or argumentation without subjective elements such as emotional appeal. I wasn't completely sure. Were you saying that we should use that or do that or apply that in the way we discuss things?
Yeah, it was this Wikipedia article. subjective. Yeah, the Wikipedia article said dialectic reason plays debate, but the concept excludes subjective elements such as emotional appeal or modern pejorative sense of rhetoric. This is not exactly not my, I don't know, do I think this myself? I think it's Hegelian idea that there is this pure truth or pure facts without emotions. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Do we have? What do you think? Can there be any emotions without any subjective views? Or can we have not pure emotions but pure facts? This is a very philosophical question also.
Yes, it is definitely. And I actually think that's maybe more of a personal opinion, but that's quite a patriarchal idea that we can have discussions, because it's kind of a, they say you have different points of view and then you exclude everything that's subjective. And then I think that isn't possible, right? And shouldn't it then be much better to emphasize that we have different emotions and different perspectives, and then to try to find common ground, instead of trying to find common ground by excluding all those things?
Yeah.
Because maybe that's even a little bit dangerous. I'm just thinking about that. Like, I don't know, but I was actually thinking the other way around would be maybe better.
Yeah, and this is something which is actually this idea is against this what I showed about this polyphonic thinking, or this having different roles in your speech already, or thinking. And I think my self that my mind is kind of a prism, you know. It's my life and the experience I've got. It's a kind of a prism, and I'm always seeing through this multicolored kind of a thing and the more I have experiences and the older I get, I have more colors. But there is I think that I see things different as a middle-aged woman from Finland, from welfare society, from educated, having a couple of children, some troubles behind, some other experiences, my work, what I've done. It makes me think and see things differently, in a different way than like for someone else. But still, I believe that we can gain some kind of a common understanding in our communication.
Can we link that back to trust? Because you mentioned a few times at the beginning of the presentation that like trust is important in it. And I wanted to ask you how who is in your experience kind of deemed trustworthy, and how the notion of trust is constructed in the kind of the policy world, and sort of what is your role as those translators? Sort of, are you sort of seeing yourself as more like opening up space for more voices to be heard in that process of having conversations with the policymakers or informing that policymakers, or how do you kind of create the spaces that, you know, and relationships, I suppose, that are based on trust?
I think trust and respect are something that goes, you know, hand in hand in a way that you have to respect, or you have to trust other people's what they are doing, what they are saying, and what they're dealing about for, because I think we have a kind of a well, very often the first intuition about the other people is not always the trustworthy, or we might think that others are weird, or it's difficult to understand, or something like that, and yeah, there's a lot of things that we don't need to understand or need to respect, but in a common discussion and a dialogue, I think there's if we believe that the person has a good will in speech, then we trust, and then we can probably respect these things, and yeah, this being open for different voices or different ideas, it's a very good thing, but you don't have to share these things, but it's very important to listen. How do I explain it? It's yeah. Something just appeared about my mind, but
I'll come back on that if that comes back.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the meantime, Laura, do you want to jump in with your question?
Hi.
Hi, Mario. Thanks for your talk. I was really interested in the thread of conversation because I feel like in my experience on the Creatures Project, the kind of much of the work of kind of participatory creative practice is about kind of already creating conditions where we might be more amenable to listen and hear and kind of receive different ideas. And I think that's a really kind of to me as an outsider, that seems like quite an undervalued kind of set of processes. And I wondered if you had kind of come across in your work where you were kind of thinking about particular tools and methods for sort of gathering people. And especially when we're talking across different knowledge regimes here, like we were talking in the earlier part of the conversation about maybe policymakers kind of thinking of people as these kind of interchangeable public units, and then we're kind of like getting to these situated practices of inviting people in to become part of a process of art making. And I wondered if you had kind of been at that intersection and thought a little bit about artistic and creative practices.
I was speaking about management tools, which are sometimes could be very, very different, but also based on design tools and artistic tools. But this always has I think has helped me at least to work together or find a common voice or common understanding to have something concrete things to work with, and they are very close to artistic tools. These sticky notes or which I don't know. I'm enthusiast of those whenever I can get people around the same table or same screen and do something together to find the solutions to the questions. So it's a kind of a knowledge building process or a process of building a common understanding. But yeah, I'm not artist myself, but but I do like to use different design tools and visualizations and drawing things together. Yeah.
I would like to ask also, Marjo, on your engagement with failure in communicating the value of creative practice. And this is something that came up a number of times in Creatures when we talked about the different ways that we understand and try to convey the value of creative practices, especially in like pushing for change. Often the discussion comes down to like trying to like show all the different ways that creative practice contributes to change, but not necessarily engaging with kind of the way that things fail or the negative impacts or things that don't work, and that kind of culture of not speaking about things that don't work. So I was just curious, what is your experience at Cupore as an organization in engaging with failure, negative impacts, and those things that are quite like uncomfortable in many contexts where the outcome is kind of the key thing to keep your eyes on. Yeah, how do you engage with failure, negative impacts?
So how do you feel about negative impacts or
when it comes to thinking about the value of creative practices in policy context? Yeah.
Well, not very easy question. I don't know. I trust in a fair and straight speech and the, I don't know to answer right your question, but it's very important that we have a atmosphere where we can be as much as in the same level that we can share our opinions and ideas in a trustworthy atmosphere, so that everybody has right to speak, and then and you can, yeah, you have to be sure that there won't be any kind of harassment or neglect these voices or other things, and this is, I think, it's very important when someone is trying to interrupt or how to avoid you to speak or so this is, of course, sometimes the situation. I don't know, can I answer correctly to your answer? You were speaking about value of change.
Mm-hmm.
Or can you explain your question?
No, it was just the kind of what you alluded to in thinking about the kind of that the failure is not the easy thing to communicate, and therefore the need to create those spaces where people feel comfortable about expressing the things that don't work, rather than just sort of saying about how nice it is the things that work. But also just to say, we've got only a couple of minutes left, and I don't think we have any more questions. So maybe, Marjo, if you have any kind of key like reflection message, anything that you would like for people to take away about kind of this topic that we're talking about, then please do share that.
Well, I don't know, because this is could have been quite a messy lecture or speech to you about or presentation, how to say, but what actually first came to my mind when I was thinking about this when I started to prepare is this trust and the civilization, so that the civilized people always cope with different situations, and this is if we keep us very civilized, so we will manage and but world is very, very complex thing, and like every individual as well. So I just think that we have to be brave, and we have to have this kind of nerve to say out loud also different kind of things in a safe atmosphere. This is very important. And thank you for creating me and safe atmosphere of sharing my not so very well defined ideas.
No, thank you so much, Marjo. I think we will stay with the messiness and the trouble of all the thoughts that it has, I think, sparked and provoked for a while. And yeah, thank you so much for preparing that contribution and thinking together with us. Just to finish off with saying that the next Creatures seminar will be taking place in October, on 5th of October, and we will be joined there by Christian Fissler from the Arts Formation Project, who will be speaking about creating better digital transformation through the arts. So please, if you have not registered, there will be a link on the Creatures website, and we'll be looking forward to seeing many of you there. And thanks everyone so much for your time, and have a nice rest of the day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.